tonight, the memo has landed.
Good morning.
Getting fraternities to be less dumb.
People swallowing goldfish and people having to crawl on their hands and knees and through broken glass.
And the Super Bowl of ice fishing.
Reel that sucker in! Get him in!
Today, Spain extradited one of the world's most notorious alleged spammers to the U.S. American officials have accused Russian citizen Pyotr Levashov of running a network of more than 100,000 computers used by cybercriminals to distribute viruses and spam emails. Police arrested him while he was on vacation in Barcelona last April. Spain later rejected an extradition request from Russia. Levashov's lawyers say the American case against him is politically motivated. A new study using laser technology to survey the Guatemalan jungle has revealed 60,000 previously undiscovered ancient Mayan structures. They were connected to one another through a vast network of cities, highways, and large-scale farms, debunking the theory that individual Mayan cities mostly operated in isolation. The findings have led researchers to revise Mayan population estimates from 1 to 2 million to around 20 million people, roughly half the size of Europe's population during the same period. France dispatched police reinforcements to the port city of Calais after a violent brawl between Afghan and Eritrean migrants broke out there this morning. The officials say 4 people are in critical condition from gunshot wounds, and more than a dozen have been injured. France's interior minister blamed the violence on migrant traffickers and organized gangs. An estimated 800 migrants are in the city, trying to cross the English Channel into the UK. 2 watchdog groups are suing the Department of Health and Human Services to obtain records, following a Vice News exclusive report on the agency's handling of an abortion for a teenager in its care. The report detailed how Trump administration officials discussed trying to use a scientifically unproven method to reverse the undocumented teen's abortion.
The explosive memo written by Republicans on the Intelligence Committee that they said would put a stake in the heart of the Russia investigation, on its own terms, kind of a bust. The big claim is that the FBI used a research doc funded partly by Democrats, the so-called Steele dossier, as primary evidence to get a surveillance warrant on Carter Page, a former Trump campaign national security advisor. The memo alleges that the FBI knew the dossier came from Democratic sources, but ignored or concealed those details. Republicans, including the president, say this is evidence of partisan bias at the FBI. Even ignoring the fact the dossier started with conservative funding, the claim here is pretty thin. For one, the FBI had an eye on Page since 2013. That's long before the Steele dossier was created. And if you know the basics about warrants approved under the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, the idea that a warrant request was based solely on opposition research from a former British intelligence officer is laughable. FISA law is pretty strict.
You almost have to have someone in the act of doing what you're trying to seek a FISA to be approved. So it's a very high threshold. It's also held to an incredible level of scrutiny because it's reviewed every 90 days. You got 5 people involved in this process, the renewal process, with probably close to 200 years of experience. That's hard for me to fathom that those 5 people would have missed something and put this process in jeopardy.
Even some Republicans say the memo was largely written for partisan gain.
I think there was some attempt to try to discredit the investigation. There are a number of members who were grumbling and had reservations about how this issue has been handled and why risk a source or a method for a partisan advantage. It gives off the appearance that, we're trying to somehow influence the investigation.
Is the memo actually going to change anything with Robert Mueller's Russia investigation? As Dent said, it gives Trump another talking point as he tries to undermine it. And he could try to use the memo as justification for firing Deputy AG Rod Rosenstein, which would be the first step in trying to get rid of Mueller. But we don't know if Trump will take it that far. What we do know is that the memo sets a new precedent for the use of classified information for partisan gain.
What I hear, and it's certainly second and third hand, is enormous consternation within the intelligence community as well as the Bureau and Department of Justice about the precedent this sets that members of Congress are now going to have their staff write politically biased memos using intelligence information and seek to publish it and seek to demagogue around it.
But the damage could go deeper than that. The release of this memo could have a chilling effect on informants to the FBI if they think that whatever they tell agents could be released by Congress on a political whim.
It is going to have an effect. If I'm a person who can, what we call in the classified world, become an asset to the Bureau, I have to think twice now about whether I want to do that, because maybe the memo that's going to have my name in it is going to get released next year. I, in all my years, have never heard the FBI describe something as possibly having grave consequences. It seems here that the only individuals or organization or entity that benefits from this are the Russians.
Tomorrow will be Janet Yellen's last day as head of the Federal Reserve. During her 4 years in office, the unemployment rate fell from 6.7% to 4.1%. The number of unemployed Americans fell by 3.8 million, and the number of Americans who have jobs rose by 9.2 million, as people who had previously dropped completely out of the labor force came back in. Inflation, meanwhile, stayed low. It's been below 2% for most of Yellen's term, which means a dollar is worth about as much today as it was in 2014. And the stock market rose almost 60%. Yellen managed all of this by resisting pressure from inside and outside the Fed to raise interest rates quickly. Even though rates were below 0.25% when she took office, she raised rates just twice in her first 3 years, and 3 times since. That let the economy start to grow quickly, without stoking inflation. As economist Scott Sumner put it recently, Yellen is on a glide path to near perfection. She did all of this in the face of tremendous political hostility. Only 11 GOP senators voted in favor of her confirmation, and Republicans accused her of inflating bubbles and recklessly risking out-of-control inflation. During the 2016 campaign, Trump said she was keeping rates low to help the Democrats.
We have a Fed that's doing political things.
Given all that, it wasn't a huge surprise that the president failed to appoint Yellen to a second term. But the booming economy Trump keeps taking credit for simply wouldn't exist without her. This week, Egypt's president, Abdelfateh al-Sisi, sent a message to anyone who might be nostalgic for the country's 2011 revolution.
الكلام اللي كان اتعمل من 7-8 سنين مش هيتكرر تاني في مصر.
7 years ago, thousands of Egyptians were camped out in Tahrir Square, demanding an end to nearly 3 decades of President Hosni Mubarak's rule. They stayed there in protest for 18 days. Since then, Egyptians have seen 2 presidents sent to prison, a takeover by the military, and mass demonstrations that led to hundreds of deaths. This year, Sisi's running for president again. But the state of the country's democracy is a far cry from the vision so many protesters fought for.
أنا بشعر لغاية اللحظة دي إنه 18 يوم الأولى للثورة هم أحلى أيام حياتي. رحت أنا وصديقي خدنا الطريق ده ورحنا جبنا خيمة، وكان أول خيمة حطيناها كانت هنا في الداير اللي في الوسط ده. ده اليوم اللي كنا بنسيب فيه الميدان في الصباح الباكر، كان الميدان بيخلى. أنا فاكر في اللحظة دي إنه كان بالنسبة لي ده يوم العيد، وإحنا خلاص خلصنا كل حاجة وممكن أروح أشوف شغلي وخلاص مصر في أمان. لكن الموضوع طلع عكس كده خالص. دي بدأت معاها مرحلة جديدة، هي مرحلة إعداد نفسي لدخول البرلمان. لكن في جزء فضل وهو ابتدى يعني ابتدوا يوصفوني ان انا خرجت بره اهداف الثوره، وانه ابتدوا بعضهم يبقى متطرف ثوريا جدا وبيظن انه لازم عشان مصر تبقى صح لازم نهد المؤسسات خالص ونعيد بنائها. وده طبعا فكر غير صحيح. ما يعني أنا لو هديت المؤسسات مش هتقوم تاني، أنا هبقى الصومال يعني.
مفيش تغيير بيحصل بشكل فجائي. التغيير اللي بيحصل بشكل فجائي بدون قواعد تنظيمية سرعان ما بيختفي، ولا أنا في 2011 أكبر مثلا. بالتالي كان لحظة وصول السيسي للسلطة أو لرئاسة السلطة كان أمر متوقع تماما. أعتقد أن هي كانت لحظة محبطة بالنسبة لي، إنه كنت أتمنى شكل مختلف للسلطة في الوقت ده، وكنت أتمنى انتقال للسلطان بشكل أكثر ديمقراطية مما كانت عليه. وبالتالي هو ده الدافع الرئيسي اللي بيخلينا مكملين رغم الإحباطات المحيطة بينا، رغم سيطرة الأجهزة الأمنية على المشهد السياسي والاقتصادي. لازلت موجود في تنظيمات سياسية، لازلت بساعد وبدعم فئات مختلفة من المجتمع دي للمطالبة بحقوقهم. مش كلنا لازم نسير في نفس الصف، ومش كلنا لازم نؤيد الرئيس، ومش كلنا لازم نؤيد صاحب الشعبية الأكبر، وإن في أصوات مختلفة في المجتمع يجب احترامها، ولازم إنها تفضل، ولازم إنها تبقى موجودة دايما كبديل قدام المواطنين، وإننا لازم نتمسك بوجود انتخابات تعددية حتى لو فرصنا فيها مش كبيرة.
أنا عايز 18 يوم يرجعوا بنفس التفاصيل بنفس كل حاجة، كله شارك. كان إحساس طبعا لا إحساس لا أنت عايز تغير البلد دي بتاعتك، وعمرك ما حسيت الإحساس ده قبل كده. يعني البلد دي عمرها ما كانت بتاعتنا، فلا اليوم ده البلد دي بتاعتنا. كنا بنضايق ونشم غاز وعمال أعيط من الغاز وعمال ماشي سعيد وسط الناس وبساعدهم بأي حاجة. بس كان في أمل، يعني أنت في لا إحنا نكسب.
حرام أنا محمد.
أنا ندمان اللي حصل بعد ال 18 يوم ده اللي بوظ الحاجة الحلوة اللي عملناها في 18 يوم باظت بعدين. فقلت 2013 كانت في مظاهرة كان في عصر الإخوان ساعتها. أول حاجة انفرادي، يعني أنت بتقعد في أوضة لوحدك. تاني حاجة مفيش مية بقى، مفيش نور شمس خالص. هو العنبر نفسه أو المكان نفسه تحت الأرض. تجربة ما بحبش أفتكرها الصراحة.
البعض يعني بيحاول إن يجاوب على سؤال الثورة نجحت ولا فشلت الآن، والحقيقة ده خطأ شديد. فلكن إحنا لسه في منتصف الطريق، فغلط إنه البعض يرد ويقول إن الثورة الآن نجحت أو إنها فشلت.
الثورة في وجهة نظري لم تفشل، كانت علامة مضيئة وفارقة في تاريخ المجتمع ده.
أنا مش شايف اللي في حاجة على الأرض بتطلع، مفيش تحت.
1 year ago this week, Penn State sophomore Tim Piazza died at a Beta Theta Pi frat party. He downed 18 drinks in 82 minutes as part of a brutal hazing ritual. At some point, Piazza fell down a flight of stairs, and his frat brothers eventually picked him up and put him on a couch. What they didn't do was call for help until nearly 12 hours later.
We have a friend who is unconscious. He hasn't moved. He's cold extremities. He's probably in an ambulance.
Piazza's death led to a scathing grand jury report, involuntary manslaughter charges, which were eventually dropped, and new anti-hazing policies at Penn State. But spring rush is now back underway, for the first time since Piazza's death.
During rush at Penn State, would-be frat boys really do rush from house to house to get pitched on what each fraternity has to offer.
What draws you to it?
The brotherhood, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, there's always going to be
fun.
Yeah, there's always going to be parties, but
fun.
I think I care more about the connections and the brotherhood.
Frats may seem outmoded in the era of Snapchat and legal weed, but participation has actually gone up at Penn State over the past 10 years. In 2007, 2,218 students were in fraternities. In 2017, there were 3,220. That's out of an undergrad student body of 46,000.
Why are you rushing?
I'm looking to meet some of my best friends for the future. I know one of the things another kid that gave us a tour on another zone day mentioned was that a bunch of the kids in the house were going to be kids that he's going to see again on his wedding day, and I thought that was something that's really cool.
Tim Piazza's death has rattled fraternities, which now have to deal with more oversight from the university and tougher rules, including a 10-day moratorium on partying while frats are recruiting. But the tragedy hasn't diminished students' desire to pledge. During Spring Rush in 2017, that's when Piazza died, 652 students registered to check out a fraternity or sorority. During this Spring Rush, 783 students registered.
You got the armbands or wristbands?
Yeah.
Let me see them.
Sure.
So how does this process work? How do you get these?
We had to fill out an application online, go through a whole course, then you take a quiz, and then you go and get your wristband.
What's in it? What's it like?
It talks about what you're going to be doing throughout the entire rush process, all the dates, and lays out pretty much everything for you, and then make sure you understand. Talks about hazing, what to do if there is hazing, how to report it, and everything like that.
What did it say about hazing?
It says that you should report any hazing to the IFC immediately.
The school says, quote, hazing that involves alcohol, physical abuse, or any behavior that puts a student's mental or physical health at risk will result in swift, permanent revocation of the university recognition for the chapter involved. It's a new zero-tolerance policy.
Do you feel like you have a good handle on what it is that you're going to be required to do if you decide to go forward?
Yes.
And all that's, you're comfortable with all of it?
100%.
Feel the same way?
I don't know if I agree with that so much, because there is things that I'm not comfortable doing, and there's houses that I've heard do more hazing, and I haven't been going to those houses because I don't want to do the intense hazing. I don't think it's worth it. I want to find a group of guys that doesn't force you to do.
Well, what's the thing you wouldn't do?
Like excessive drinking, anything that's going to put myself in danger, pretty much.
If I was a pledge, I wouldn't show up. It's like hailing outside. And then 65 people showed up.
Junior Nick Lanham is the president of a frat at Penn State. If we wanted to talk to him, we weren't allowed to say which one. Tell me what it was like for you when you rushed a frat.
I went by the house and there was a bunch of guys and I talked to them, hung out with them, and I thought they were really cool.
Did you have to do any stupid shit?
I think I had to take a Zumba class. They made me take a Zumba class, and I wore this bright pink headband, and I went in, I did all the exercises and the moves. It was all just kind of stuff that was to make you kind of look silly, but it was all just to make you closer to those people, and none of it was per se to hurt you, unlike perhaps some places. You hear these stories in the news all the time of people swallowing goldfish and people having to crawl on their hands and knees through broken glass. There's so many fraternities that they just do stuff that I'm like, why would you, those aren't your friends. Why would you do that kind of stuff?
Those aren't just stories. Those things did happen at Penn State. That's according to a grand jury investigation opened after the death of Tim Piazza. You'd be happy if you just got stuck eating a goldfish. One frat's initiation included something called the pot, where a cup filled with hot sauce, catnip, cat food, urine, semen, shampoo, conditioner, alcohol, and bread chunks was passed around among pledges. They had to drink it. What job does the fraternity have to make sure that people know that's not going to happen to them?
They're the ones that are behind the veil. The university can write as many policies and stuff as they want, and their assumption is that the people within that fraternity are going to follow those rules, but really at the end of the day, it's the responsibility of the people in that room to make the right decision.
There's a strange culture of secrecy around all this stuff.
I'm going to go around the back.
Penn State is eager to say it's changed, but it also requires you to just take their word for it. The school won't put officials on camera to talk about frat policy. Brothers, meanwhile, are forbidden by their national chapters to talk on camera about their frats.
Hi. Yo, I'm with Vice News. We're doing a story about frat life at Penn State. Sorry. Is something we could do?
No comments.
Okay.
It feels like everyone is protecting everyone else from scrutiny. Frats say they're different after Piazza. You're just going to have to trust them.
Tomorrow, 10,000 of our best friends are going to come up and we're going to raise a whole bunch of money. And that's what it's all about. So, thanks, guys.
On the morning before the world's largest charitable ice fishing event, the Brainerd JCs gather for breakfast at a local diner in central Minnesota. So like what's coming up here?
The crew of the committee just left. They're all heading towards the ice. They're gonna go get prepped, make the tents and stage look all pretty and get the banners and signs up, and I'm gonna go coordinate 80 volunteers to drill 20,000 holes.
How did this idea come about?
It started with 7 to 10 JCs who are now aged out by far, and it actually happened on the back of an empty case of beer. They were sitting around kind of just BSing, talking about how to make an impact in the community in the wintertime at Brainerd, because in the summertime this is just grows so much, and in the wintertime it's just dead. So right now we actually are entering the contest area. So this is where people will be fishing.
Man, how thick is the ice right now?
When we did our ice check with the Sheriff's Department last week, we had 18.5 inches on center ice. So I would guess we probably have about 20 inches of ice right now.
The ice fishing extravaganza on Gull Lake is a huge production. Hundreds of volunteers work for days so that thousands of anglers from throughout the state and around the world can go for walleye, northern pike, tulipy, and perch. The top 150 fish that weigh in the heaviest win a prize.
All the hole drillers over here, please. All the hole drillers. There's a grid line of snowmobile tracks. So when the lines are crisscrossed, that's where you're gonna drill your next hole. About 10 feet apart, easy squeezy.
Now in their 28th year, the JCs have turned themselves into an efficient machine, drilling 20,000 holes in under 4 hours.
Okay, you just need a basic fishing rod.
It can be this small?
Yeah,
Really?
ice
So you
fishing
can,
are
like,
short ones.
you
We
can-
don't use long ones.
You can pull out something this big with this tiny rod?
These little tiny rods have pulled out some pretty darn big fish.
Sherry Wichter has been running the S&W bait shop in town since 1987. After this, what do I need?
Okay, you ever put a bobber stop?
No.
You ever put a bobber stop on?
I've never even heard of a bobber stop before.
You never heard of a bobber stop. We better give you one with instructions.
A rod, a bobber, a sinker, minnows for bait, and a Minnesota fishing license. The ice fishing setup costs around $60. And it all adds up. The JCs estimate that the contest contributes about $2 million to the Brainerd economy compared to a normal winter weekend. In the time that this contest has been around, how has it changed the community around here?
We center our whole winter actually around it now because it is our main event.
Is there any strategy or any sort of secret to winning this thing?
Get your line down right away and pray.
At dawn, competitors line up like it's Black Friday to lay claim to what they think will be the best fishing holes. At noon, a cannon fires. Whoa! And everyone drops their lines.
Hey, what's going on here?
Hey!
What you doing?
So, we thought we found the bottom, but I don't think we actually quite did.
All right, so first thing you've done wrong is this little plastic piece
Okay.
has to come off.
Rhonda, a native Minnesotan, grew up ice fishing and has been competing in the contest for 14 years with a group of girlfriends who marked their spot with a flag of bras. They split the 3 hours of the competition between fishing and playing bra pong.
The cannon went off and I just dropped my line down, and then I started reeling, and I thought I was about to lose it, and then all of a sudden I just pulled it right up, and there it was. It was a pretty nice fish.
Only seconds to the end of the ice fishing extravaganza.
Yeah, get him. Got one here. Oh no, you got her.
All right, so how many fish have you caught today?
I've caught 10 fish today.
How?
Jigging with my spoon up and down.
Hey, I'm doing the same thing over there, and I haven't had a bite.
Nothing.
Yeah, like what you're doing is exactly what I've been doing.
Really?
Yeah. All right, so what's the secret then? Because clearly that's not just luck. Or is it just luck?
Don't be so aggressive.
After the competition ended, the few lucky fishermen checked the leaderboard to see how they did, while everyone else walked off the ice.
As it stands right now, Stephen, with a 3.10 pound northern pike, you are in first place. How are you feeling right now?
Shocked.
He's almost speechless.
Why do you think it's been so successful?
I can't explain why it's gotten so big. I mean, we just do this for fun.
Sure.
And there's over 20,000 hours of volunteer hours on here. I call it probably like one of the 8 wonders of the world because there's 7. I think this is, if you haven't seen this, it's something to really see. I mean, where else would you go to find this many people on ice and fish for 3 hours and freeze our butts off to do it?
That's Vice News Tonight for Friday, February 2nd.
I'm going to make you happy now. You've had an extraordinary year. A lot of people don't want to give you any credit, but a lot of that is indisputable. I always say that you don't mind criticism. You are 30-30 in your cognitive tests and healthy. I mean, you've never had a drink, you've never smoked, you've never taken drugs. Got to hand it to you, as you said, stable, genius. You will listen to argument. You have a lot of strong women around you. I like your tweets. Would you acknowledge that you've changed, you've evolved as a man?
People find it hard to believe it's my hair, but
yeah, that's good. I have something for you. I've done.
Oh, good. Wow.
Trump 45.
Wow.
Right. We're looking for a new leader who has probably an attacking philosophy, who believes in a strong defensive wall, and who believes in winning at all costs, and only wants big trophies.
Yeah, I know.
Anyway, that's for you. And if you do want to come and manage Arsenal, we would love it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
It means a lot to people in Britain.
Okay, good.